Clicking Bill Lats will be without a 3 second, 4 seconds. It's pretty good.
All right, welcome to the Delaware Academy Board meeting, the regular Board of Education meeting rescheduled for Monday, February 22nd due to inclement weather. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. We do not have any presentations for this month. Do we have any public comments that came in? Okay. Any public comments? All right. Routine matters. We'd like to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 25th. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. We need to approve the minutes of the special meeting held on February 8th. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim, and a second.
Second?
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Next is personnel recommendations. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim, and a second.
Second?
Thank you, Lucy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Let's do financial reports. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim, and second.
Second?
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. There are no CSE recommendations for February. We will now go into reports. Mrs. Zimmerman will be handling the principal's monthly reports and her report, so we will go with Mr. Terry Schultz.
I didn't really put together a whole lot,
That's okay.
but I will say, budget process is still ongoing, not much movement from the last time we talked. Like I said, it's not anything too scary at this point. I think that we talked about the next year being somewhat okay. I think stimulus package, there's another stimulus package on the table. We hope that that gets moved through, and my understanding is that there's $12 billion for the state of New York within that package. Without that, we still have a little bit of work to do, but like I said, I'm not totally afraid of it. The 20% aid cuts that we did experience throughout the summer and early fall have been basically, they're on their way. One of them we've received, one large one, and the other half is on its way. So that was equivalent to about $100,000 that we lost. Capital project, I can do a quick summary of that. That's really kind of one of the bigger things that's going on right now. And you'll get an update tomorrow through Kelly's update also, but they are moving along as planned. No issues at this time. Cafeteria has basically been completely gutted, both kitchen and seating area, along with the elementary library. So starting to look at, they'll probably take the main windows out of that elementary seating area within the next couple of weeks. They'd like to not expose that area to the elements if they don't have to at this time. That's really about it right now.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Carrie. Luke, do you have anything you need to report?
Nothing at this point.
We're just rolling right along. Thank you. And thank you to you and your department for continuing this effort.
So can I ask a question to Carrie about the stimulus package? So you said there's possibly another one, do you think it's like 9-12 billion for the state? How much of that would come to like schools?
We don't know yet. Actually, $12 billion was actually to the schools.
Okay.
So the governor proposed his original budget that we have on our desk now. It was actually a $6 billion stimulus package that was already involved in it. So that's the previous year's.
Right.
The stimulus package that's out there right now that Biden is putting together, is put together and is put in front of the Senate, the House at this point. That one has additional funding in it. So the governor actually had two budgets. He had a $6 billion that was part of the state, and then he wanted a $15 billion, and he's got that kind of in his pocket. From the numbers I heard yesterday, that they're looking at more along the lines of 12.5 to 12.9 billion. There's also some talk that the expected revenues for the year are 1.9 billion higher than originally anticipated. And that could come back to the schools also. There has been no talk about where that money would go. And remember, the state could easily turn around and say, oh, we got all this extra money, so let's take a little bit more aid out of your package and let's supplement it with that, and look what we did. I think what you're gonna see is maybe the STAR aid that they kept talking about cutting will disappear. I'm hoping that you'll see the increase, if there is any increase in the foundation aid, which has been flat for the last two.
Thank you.
Any other questions for her? All right, superintendent. Okay. So Mr. Schultz had mentioned the capital project update. I've asked Mr. Schultz to give a brief write-up each week while the capital project is moving now into the construction phase that I can attach to my superintendent's weekly update that I send to the board. So you'll have an ongoing narrative of each week by week during the actual construction phase of the project. I will just put a little reference in mine, but certainly you can ask me questions, anything that's contained therein. Carrie and I attend all the meetings together, so we are both appraised of everything that's going on. But you can expect that on a weekly basis attached to my update. So thank you in advance, Carrie, for doing that for us. Jackie Gibson is here tonight. She did not appear as a personnel appointment because she is, as you know, she's part of our music department. And for this past year, we have been absent or unable to fill a high-quality strings instructor for that music department. However, the district had committed to maintaining that position, and given the complications with our schedule this year, we have limped through with a part-time individual who has been providing orchestra lessons to our students, but it falls short, or well short, of providing the same robust orchestral experience that we've come accustomed to at DA. And we are fully behind continuing to keep that full and keep our music department full. So Jackie has been in touch with her colleagues in the music department all year, and they approached Robin and Julie and I with a proposal that Jackie shift to become our primary orchestral instructor. And I was even presented today with some work that they've also done, proposing some shifts within the music department that are really well thought out, that make sense for kids, and that really provide a nice comprehensive music experience in all areas, right K right through 12. So congratulations, I suppose, Jackie Gibson. We're excited to have you back. She is finishing out her maternity leave for the rest of this year, so don't get too excited. But come this fall, we will be back in action. So what you will see, however, is a posting for a general music elementary teacher now. In order to keep that full, we will be posting that this spring to hopefully maximize our applicant pool for that position. So Jackie was here tonight for that recognition. We're really excited to have her. Do you want to give us a glimpse into the dreams of the future for orchestra?
Well, I mean, real short. I'm really excited. I'll miss teaching those little guys and the incredible teams in elementary school. But some people know that I work a lot with Mr. Deegan, so I'm excited to take it over and walk into those things that I already have done a lot with. I taught like the elementary upper strings for the last 5 years, so I kind of know where the program is. And that was my training when I went to college as well. I just ended up teaching general music, so I'm really excited to teach strings finally after 10 years. And a fun fact, it is what it is, my grandfather taught strings here 50 years ago. It's just kind of a cool thing. It's really in the yearbook. So that's a neat thing for me. So thank you very much, and for your support of the music department, that we'll get to make it grow and flourish even more.
Absolutely. Thank you for your flexibility and stepping up to the positions.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, good, so are we.
And I will step out. because of the.
You got little ones at home, absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here and see you all in person.
Yes. Drive safe, Jake.
Thank you.
The other piece that I was hoping that the board could circle back to was the request by our students in a recent presentation for the board to consider adding a student as an ex officio member of our Board of Education. You had seen in not my last board superintendent update, but I believe the one prior, I had attached some of the language that Bruce had found out for us that lay out the parameters for that. The most significant one being that since this is the first time, if you want to move forward, because this is the first time that the district is considering this position, it would require a referendum on during our budget vote on that ballot as a separate proposition. And that's probably the most significant piece you need to be aware of, but a few other pieces that the board or the student board member sits right here at the table with us and is required to attend all of our public Board of Education meetings. They cannot come into executive session for any purpose, but they are expected to participate and to be asked questions and really to provide that nice conduit from the students in the student body back to the Board of Education. It has to be a senior each year, and there is a process, a selection process that typically involves interviews by current board members, myself, could be administrators. The law does not outline who needs to interview other than there has to be a process, and it is a 1-year seat. So that's kind of basically the piece, the crux of it. I came from a district that did have a student board member, and it worked beautifully. It really helped our students understand their duty in terms of their civic obligations, and it helped them to grow and to really understand the governmental process of it. But the information that they would bring from the student body and the spin that they would have based on their experience of things that we talk about in meetings never ceased to amaze me. It was always very professional, and I certainly would support that, but it's up to you if that's something you want to move forward with, because we do have to place it on the ballot. We don't need a decision tonight, but I just wanted to keep that in the forefront of your mind. We will need the decision by the April board meeting at the latest, right, Sue? To decide what propositions go on that ballot.
Will we, parts of committees also?
Yes, yes. All subcommittees of the board are public meetings, so anybody can attend those. So they could certainly, there's nothing that would preclude them from attending subcommittee meetings.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it really falls right in line with our mission statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just them bringing back us from the students, but I think it's really important to have that student voice from us back to the students. So I think it's a great idea.
When would they get to start, would they start in July?
That's good, because then we can do the full.
Questions or comments about that?
I'll make a note to circle back one more time before we make a final decision.
Is there additional information that anybody's looking for, just so that we know we can get whenever?
I think it's a great idea,
Okay.
so.
Actually, does anyone think it's
Is there anyone has any concerns?
right?
Okay. Bruce, would you be able to get proposition language?
Yeah.
Great, over
It
to
looks
Sue.
like we can.
Sounds like we've made a decision.
Yes.
All right, congratulations to our student body.
Yeah, whoever the student.
Very exciting.
Congratulations.
I will bring this back with your permission to Student Senate and let them know that the district is pursuing this, so.
Are they aware of the requirements?
Yes, they are. Yes, I attended a Senate meeting after their presentation, but prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay.
And shared with them what we had found out, what the expectation would be, and really the work that's involved in it. And they were still 100% on board, so
And there'll be plenty of time from the vote to
have the
get
process.
that all taken care of and interviews. And
Right.
Correct.
We can't-
So it would be someone from this year's junior class.
Right.
And they need to be in place by July 10th or thereabout.
By the
When the
reorg.
new board, by reorg, when the new board takes the seat.
Yes.
Yes. There have been a few questions that have come up regarding April break and traveling during our April break. And I clarified today with our principals to turnkey to their faculty and staff that the parameters are no different at this point than they were in December. Basically, if someone wants to travel to one of the non-contiguous states, they still have to test before they leave, test before they leave to come back to New York. Otherwise, there's the 10-day mandatory quarantine. If they're traveling out of state for a vacation and choose to come back to quarantine, that's not an appropriate use of sick days. And we've talked, at some extent about using personal days if those are pre-approved, but certainly no one has personal days that exceed that cover the entire length of that vacation. So at that point, they would become unpaid days. There is some conversation at the Department of Health. I would not be surprised if this comes out before we're traveling, but for people who have received both vaccinations, and it's been a minimum of 2 weeks after that second vaccination, then the travel restrictions are lifted and there's not a requirement to quarantine. However, and that's the talk right now.
That's state Department of Health or local?
That is state, and the local departments of health right now are just waiting for that to come down in writing. And I asked Mandy Walsh about that in email just last night. So that's the latest guidance, but as of right now, nothing has changed. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. The other piece is just an update on the status of the 3 through 8 New York State assessments and Regents exams. There's also been some communication from the U.S. Department of Education this week. A memo came out to the field indicating that they will not be approving blanket waivers that individual states have submitted, thereby relieving us of 3 through 8 and Regents exams. However, they are encouraging states to resubmit waivers asking for certain flexibilities in those assessments. New York State put out a statement, and I would have both of these statements attached to your weekly update tomorrow night. New York State then put out an official memo saying that they do plan on sending the waiver back to the Federal Education Department. At this point, the impression that I get from reading is that 3 through 8 assessments will likely not be canceled, but will follow some degree of flexibility. Now, the flexibilities that they're offering, they've given examples, but there's not clear guidance or interpretation on that piece from New York State yet. I'm hoping that they will give us local control over the implementation of those. Some examples would be expanding the testing window. And they've said you can test into the summer and fall if you'd like. I do not support testing in the summer and fall. But like I said, we would make some local decisions surrounding that. Other flexibility has been in terms of scheduling, location. States can request a shortened test. I could go on and on about how I feel about the decision in general. However, regardless of what comes down from the state, we will comply, but I will not be making that decision in isolation. I will be including our principals and our teachers who that will most directly be affecting. So those teachers who teach in those grade levels and who have Regents exams in the decision making for how that will look locally. The other piece with Regents exams is the New York State Department of Education is planning on requesting a waiver from Regents exams for those exams that are not required through ESSA or through the Federal Education Department. Those are your 11th grade English, your algebra, living environment, and earth science. So if Regents exams are canceled, it won't be those. But there could be greater flexibility into how we use those grades here locally, and how we use those to determine a qualification for various pathways toward that Regents diploma. So I've said a lot, but I've said a lot of nothing, because that's where we are with the current guidance. But certainly as more comes out, I will let you know. I did provide everything I was described to you in an email to our faculty and staff earlier this week, so they know as much as I know at this point. And as information comes in, I try to turnkey it to our faculty and staff as quickly as I can. DCMO sent this today. They are wondering if we have any board members who might be interested in running for the DCMO BOCES board. There is a resolution that would have to go before the board to nominate a current board member here if there is interest in sitting on both the Delaware Academy Board and the BOCES board. When it appears that there are 3 set seats that are up for election, currently held by Judith Breeze of Walton, Deborah Kurtz of Sherburne Earlville, and Vanessa Warren of Acton. The term is 3 years, and the election is to take place April 27th. Yes. So if there is interest, I have a Q&A document here that they just sent us today. However, we would need to move to nominate somebody. I believe they want that by, deadline to submit a nomination form for the candidate is March 26th. When is our March board meeting? 22nd. Okay, so we do have one more board meeting that we can put that resolution on the agenda. So I will leave this with you. If there's anyone interested in seeking one of those seats. Okay, and the last piece under my report has to do with a movement that is currently is certainly sparking lots of conversation regarding how do we bring more kids back. And I know that Kim sent an email to our entire board just yesterday, and what you don't know yet is that this is something I've been giving tons of thought to all this week in light of all the chatter. So if you've been reading the NISBA sends out the Eclipse every week with updates. There have been articles in the Eclipse about different advocacy groups, superintendents, and other advocacy groups across the state who are really putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Department of Education to consider reducing the social distancing requirement, thereby allowing us to bring more students back as early as this spring. However, I have spoken with our Delaware County Department of Health and our district superintendent, and basically we are bound to still uphold the current guidance as it is currently written. There are some people who are still hanging their hat on that original clause in July that spoke to the 6 feet or a mask. However, there was another red line report that came out following that later in the summer that pretty much trumped that and made that an and. So until that is officially changed, we don't have the ability to reduce that. I know there have been some suggestions of looking into the plexiglass again and the barriers. I had asked Carrie to work up just a preliminary estimate on that as a potential solution, keeping in mind that we can't just use the cheap plexiglass. They have to be fire coated and rated, and that was part of the Delaware County Department of Health's response as well, that OSHA is very specific and there aren't a ton of options that are fiscally reasonable. Carrie, do you have any more specific numbers?
Yeah, we had looked at something like that in the early fall. And looking at it again, when we looked at it originally, it was just very expensive. And it really did not, of course, we could buy 100 of them or 1,000 of them, it doesn't change the fact that you still have to be desks 6 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at it again, if you were to build a district of students, let's say 700 or 7, you're looking at anywhere from $45,000 to $65,000 just for plexi or polycarbonate.
Right.
That does not include shipping, and I will tell you that shipping on those items are about 10 to 15% of the cost. We have bought, of course, barriers throughout the district, and it's not cheap. The other issue we run into is those have to be cleaned every night. And then actually in middle school, high school, as students sit down, like you sit at these tables, they have to be cleaned every time there's a shift change. So elementary, you would clean them once a day most likely, but in middle school, high school, you would have to clean them every single time somebody sits and change it out. So just the labor alone would be very difficult. The cost alone would be very difficult. And like I said, it doesn't change, still doesn't change the fact that you still have to be 6 feet.
Would we even be able to get them, like supply-wise?
Usually we haven't ordered any in a while. We ordered quite a few of the larger barriers in the fall. Turnaround time at that point was 2 to 3 weeks. I would say if you're ordering hundreds of them, it could be, the same thing, a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 4.
Now, all of that being said, thank you, Carrie, did I interrupt you? No, Lucy, you had something.
Yeah, well, I was gonna just say, another thing that we have to think if we do think about plexiglass is the acoustics. Because I saw a news program where a teacher said, this is my class, and it was all plexiglass off. And she said, look at, they're sitting down, what they can see of me, of the board or the smart board, and how can I hear them behind the plexiglass and the mask, and how can they hear me? And plus, so it sounds like a great idea, in some ways, if the expense and everything can be handled, but not if it doesn't really allow the teaching because you can't hear.
Like I said too, it's not, by getting them, it's not saying, okay, if you get them, you get to be 3 feet apart. 6 feet apart still stays in line, so.
This is the final, this was the final document on that, and until this is changed or lifted, we still have to maintain that 6 feet. Now, that's not to say that we aren't working relentlessly all the time, looking at ways to get more kids back. I am awaiting additional guidance to come down from the government, first of all. But the second piece is that in the meantime, I've started having conversations with our administrators here to plan for fall. And what are some things that we can be advocating for and thinking about? Because I do know that while we have unequivocally demonstrated student learning and growth this year, and we've done a lot of amazing things and given opportunities we probably never dreamed we'd be able to give, this is far from ideal. Mental health alone continues to be a huge concern and a growing concern. I also pulled the numbers, this one I do have to grab my glasses for, of our enrollment, both remote only and in person, from the beginning of the year to where we stand now, because you've heard me probably mention multiple times different programs that we're trying and ways to get kids back in and requiring some kids to come back in where they can. At the elementary school, when we started the year, our highest number of remote-only learners was at 80. It is now down to 58. So we brought that many more kids back in person. And at the high school, our highest number of Bulldog Gray remote learners was 75. That number is now down to 52. So we are bringing kids back where it makes the most sense. We've been very intentional in targeting the students who need to be back in person for various reasons. And we have successfully been able to get kids back into seats while still remaining, within the legal guidelines for doing so. Now, Kim, I don't know if you wanted to add, there's also talk that, and I'm not going to speak about your specific district, but I know that I was questioned just today by a member of our administrative team saying, well, I've heard in other districts they're bringing more kids back. Well, keep in mind that other districts didn't start the year as aggressively as we did or in the same models that we did. There are some districts that are still bringing kids through the doors for the first time in some parts of our state. There are some districts that are just now moving from 4 days a week to 5 days a week. we started at 5 days a week, maximizing our capacity, and getting kids in. So when we're hearing of other districts that are doing things, we just have to make sure that, we have all of those details. But it's been made clear to me that until that particular piece of regulation is changed, we don't have the ability to start putting more kids in classrooms.
Thank you, and I have all the confidence in you and the administrators in the district that you are, if you could have everybody back here, I know, they would be here. I truly believe that. It's just very confusing to me because I work in another school district that at the administrative level are having conversations of bringing everybody back, using plexiglass, not doing 6 feet apart, and I'm like, it just confuses me. I don't understand.
I can reach out to your superintendent just to get specific.
I can do that too.
If you-
I can do that.
That would be great, yeah.
I can do
Either way,
that too. I mean, my principal came in my room the other day, and she's like, well, I told her, I said, Melinda, I've measured my room, I've measured it, I mean, take everything out of here. If I do 6 feet, I can put 14 kids in here, that's it, to maintain, that's all I can have here. She's like, well, what if every other one was plexiglass, and I'm like, I still only can do 14 kids 6 feet apart. So I know at the administrative level, they're having, that district, they're having those conversations of not doing 6 feet, maybe we do 4 feet, I don't know, that's just, because I know just in my room alone, I can't.
Yeah.
14's the max, I don't care what you do, that's what I can get if I have to maintain 6 feet apart. So that, it's just confusing because it's 18 miles away.
I know,
Communications is so different.
And I will tell you that we've also probably been guilty of walking into classrooms and looking at potential,
Yeah.
right? Because we wanna be ready for when that ADIT comes down so that we're not reacting. And, we are evaluating different ways to be able to do that. So if the governor and the Department of Health and Howard Zucker says tomorrow that, we're not waiting to the fall to do that either. So, no, I'm.
And I can guarantee you, they're not, I don't know if they're looking at fire-coated plexiglass, but I can't imagine, there's a lot more students over there than there is here, I can't imagine they're gonna pay that bill. I don't know, I'm just very confused, I'm just very confused, so. But no, thank you, because I know, I do have faith that that's the goal, and that if we could be doing it, you would be doing it. It's frustrating. I don't know, it's just very frustrating for me because I see it, as a teacher and as a parent, and it's mentally, but it's also the academic, it's not good.
It is, it's everything, and we join you in that frustration
I know you do.
and in that confusion at times too.
I guess I was just hoping, you know what I mean, I was just hoping that we could let's try 4 feet, let's try 5 feet, how many kids we could get, you know what I mean, I don't know, and just keep every other safety protocol in place that we're doing,
So those suggestions and others are landing on the ears of people who are in the decision-making seat, from many different avenues and many different realms of advocacy.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping every day to have another announcement. Sean?
So, and I just want to follow up on that. In the past, you've suggested soliciting or appealing to local representatives, and I wonder if we as a board should make that appeal, or write a letter or pass a resolution requesting the Board of Education and the governor, whomever, Zucker, reconsider, reevaluate, and just.
Yeah, and you know what, let's put all the data in there that Glenn Neal's stood in the gymnasium spewing out, seriously.
Well, I think we
He
can
has
provide
how many contact hours in the tens of thousands that, you know what I mean, I'm like, let's.
I think we could provide district-specific data to support that argument and that, or our appeal, and that we've been successful in containing identify cases and, there hasn't been spread and, I think it would be easy to support that.
If this board as a group wants to write a joint letter to all of our legislators and whichever audience that you wanna send that to, you're well within your realm and your right to do that. It would not require a board resolution, but it certainly could be written as a board, is that correct, Bruce?
Here's something that you guys.
So is that something?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys would support that, but yeah, that would be great.
I would be happy to access samples as a platform.
Yeah,
to
that
start.
would be great. I would appreciate that.
I am aware of other boards of education who have done just this.
That'd be great.
And if this is something that the board wants to do unilaterally, we can certainly do that. I would be happy to get some draft letters and to send for your perusal. And then, of course, we would need to have that all co-signed.
You want to head that up?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like me to send that to the entire board or just to Kim and Sean?
Why don't you start?
Start with Kim and Sean?
Yes. Fortunately, we've got meetings every Monday in March, so.
Yeah,
that's true.
That is true, that's right.
And this is something we can discuss in open session, right?
Of course it is,
Yeah, so-
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
So it doesn't have to wait.
Right, it does, exactly, probably get it.
Be diplomatic and all that.
Of
Yes.
course. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions?
Mr. Schultz?
I just, could you just touch base real quick on, there's been some talk about mandated reporting of vaccinated staff.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Can you just touch base on that real quick?
Yes, no, of course. So another edict that came down, this was a week. Another edict that came down this week from the Department of Health was there's actually an executive order requiring school districts to report the number of teachers only who had been vaccinated thus far in your district. My understanding is that it was out of the motivation to try to get kids back into school, to support that effort. However, yesterday, we also then received a directive from the New York State Department of Health saying districts do not report this. They are still looking into the legalities surrounding HIPAA and that type of thing. How are we targeting just one particular group? So at this point, districts have been told do not report any information until further notice. So although there's been an executive order, we've also been given the subsequent order to stay put until further guidance comes out. So Carrie and I had talked about, what are some ways that we can perhaps survey our faculty and staff and keeping that anonymous because they really only need to know the numbers. But we are not moving on anything in this district until we have specific directions from the Department of Health. Well, that's a great question. So Beth asked, don't they already know from when we go? So I've gone and I've received both vaccines at this point. And I asked that question and was told that the way they track it is just in your subcategory group. They don't drill down to your specific role
Oh, or your name,
or your district.
but they know who you are.
They certainly know who you are and that you've had the vaccine, but
That's
they
it.
can't share that information back.
Yes, okay.
So the onus is still back on districts.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder.
Any other questions?
What is our district, has our district asked teachers to, if they want to feel comfortable voluntarily offer if they've had the vaccine or not, or no, they haven't? No.
We
Okay.
have not touched it,
It's a scary thing.
nor would I recommend that we touch it. Mr. Schultz has been doing a great job, however, facilitating the vaccination process. As the Department of Health has told us, we have this many more slots this week, despite the delay in the administration of those. We have been having people going on a regular basis as soon as those slots become available.
James, did you have something?
Yes, I was just wondering, what's the whole story behind the Wednesdays at this point? With the turning them into like study halls
Okay, great question. So this is in regards to the junior senior high school. I had put out to our community in my February update that based on that survey that we had done in the first 10 weeks, when we had put out the formal survey to our teachers, students, and parents, and I had gone into classrooms and spoke at faculty meetings, just to find out, all right, how are things going? And then I came back and turnkeyed those responses in that brief presentation. And the response patterns were that, from students that I need more time to do work, I need more help to do work. Parents are saying the same thing. I'm just hitting the broad strokes here. Teachers feeling a need for more time to catch up with their planning, or more time with students, those types of things. So we took that back and worked with the high school faculty and staff, and we threw around a few different models for trying to meet the greatest number of needs for those students. And at the time, we separated those students, we looked at that data for the students who were failing and how do we reach the remote-only students, and we separated that out, and that's where we required a number of those students to come back. But separate from that, we wanted to get the broader stroke students who just needed the time to breathe and to catch up a bit. So we had looked at a few different models, and feedback from faculty and staff. There were more concerns about the implementation of those particular models. For example, we had floated an idea of running a 2-hour delay schedule where we would have an open 2 hours where students could sign up and go see whatever particular teacher. They could go for counseling during that time. They could go for music lessons, phys ed, those kind of things. But the logistics, as we drilled down, just became unyielding. So we knew something needed to be different, so we moved forward with kind of a watered down version of that, said, okay, just on Wednesdays, since that tends to be the floater day anyways, we knew that we couldn't switch to a remote-only day for everybody, like some other districts are doing, based on the overwhelming feedback from our parents in particular. So we decided that we would say on Wednesdays, no brand new instruction. Rather, use this as a time where we can differentiate instruction and target the needs of particular learners, where students can either have time independently just to catch up on homework, or they can have time to be retaught a lesson by a teacher can do review. It can also be a time where students can sign out and go to counseling groups or more intense supports through our counseling center and still try to access those other pieces. So that was the intent behind that. We also identified a number of teacher aides, LTAs, and assistants who were available during those times to say, as a teacher, if you really need just one day to pause and take another period to do some more intense lesson planning, get grades in the grade book, those types of things, that we can even provide you some relief for a period to be able to do that. So this past Wednesday was the first day of actual implementation, so only half of our student body has experienced this so far. And we've received mixed feedback. I've received mixed feedback from parents and students, and from 2 teachers. And in some cases, the feedback was, well, this is nothing more than just another study hall, and I had nothing to do, and my teacher told me to play a video game. No, not the intent. That has been addressed with that particular teacher. In another case, there was a concern that kids were being allowed to play basketball in a particular classroom. Not the intent. Those were isolated incidents. Mrs. Robbins also walked around that day, and I wish I would have printed out the email that she had sent. I don't believe that I did. But she sent an email to the entire faculty and staff just with observations that she had made and comments that students had made. And those were within the realm of, I felt such a sense of relief today I could finally breathe. I finally got caught up with all my work. I filled out 5 scholarship applications that I wouldn't have been able to get support with or get to. Positive feedback from teachers who kind of felt that sense of relief. One teacher said, I got to do fun things today that I haven't done since last year. So, you know, in German class, they were cooking. And just, people, I think, just felt a sense of, okay, I can kind of get back to a little bit of normal here. So, we're not looking to change anything at this point. If there are concerns, I certainly want to hear them.
So all the kids still come,
It is still required attendance, absolutely. This is not a day off, this is not a day for goofing off. You know, there are still structured activities, but the spirit is to address both academic and social emotional needs for all of our students, based on where they need. Another suggestion that came out of that was, could some of our upperclassmen tutor some of our middle schoolers during that time? That was, a few different people mentioned that, and there's no reason that we can't do something like that. We have supervision in the library. So other ideas are continuing to evolve out of that. The next cohort will hit that next Wednesday. So this affects kids 2 times a month.
What happens with the grade, so there's no remote learning on the Wednesday?
That's gonna depend on the teacher. In some cases, nothing looks different for remote only
Because I mean,
learners.
because the remote only learners would be theoretically be losing a day if there's no remote learning. Is that, am I understanding that correctly, or?
That could be the case. However, my understanding is that has not affected them in that way. But I can ask Mrs. Robbins to get a better sense of that.
Because I just don't want to.
But no, there was certainly recognition of that in the planning. And my only hesitation is because some remote learners on Wednesdays were already asynchronous. So they still would have things to do, it does not mean that it is face-to-face
I just was,
necessarily.
they have contact, if there's anyone contacting them at all.
but
right?
those kids can use it as a catch-up day too.
Yeah, so just, right, just want to know a little more about what's
I
happening.
have a question, why is it just senior high? How come it's not middle school and elementary that's part of that Wednesday?
Because the elementary schedule there was not a need at the elementary level. Because the schedule is very different there, because they have the remote only
Right,
teachers.
so that's what I was questioning, I didn't know.
But it is middle school. Yeah, when
Oh,
I
it is
say,
6 to
yes,
12.
yes, yep, middle high school. Did I say junior?
You said junior, senior high, so
Sorry.
I didn't know that.
Middle school, high school,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
So we touched
so
on,
the teachers at the elementary didn't
That's correct.
say really, no?
That is correct.
Okay.
so we touched on the remote only cohort, and I guess maybe falsely, I assumed that the Wednesday attempt where the change was to accommodate the hybrid models for catching up and missing, making up work and those sorts of things. So I want to just touch on the 5-day grades. There's a couple, I think 7th and 12th, who are here all 5 days. I wonder if that is a need for those grades. I mean, on any other year, they would get 5 days of instruction.
Well, keep in mind that during the normal course of instruction, through the regular course of a week, every single day during a regular week is not necessarily brand new instruction. There's naturally a day, within that is review, or that is a quiz day. And then after the quiz, you have free time, that kind of thing. So in the grand scope of maintaining the pace of curriculum, it is not that significantly intrusive.
Thank you.
Mr. Ralph, do you have any feedback? I don't usually give the floor to, but you can.
Not to put you on the spot.
Specific question, in general, I think for me, the Wednesday day was great. It was a mental day off, so to speak. I think the kids liked it. Kids that needed to catch up on things, that's what they did. Kids that were here 5 days a week, they got a chance to experience something a little bit different than what the normal class was like, and it wasn't new information or new stuff in my room. So for me, it was a good experience, and I didn't know how to feel going into it. And I had a really different perspective back in October, and I thought we almost needed that remote day as teachers. But as time went on, my perspective on that changed, and I think this was a good alternative to that from a teacher perspective. And I think it was well received by the students for the most part.
Thank you, and thanks for allowing me to capitalize on a captive teacher.
That's just me, maybe other teachers. have-
No, understood. No, thank you so much.
So the intention is to continue,
Yes,
but only when there's a full 5-day week. So for example, if there was a Monday off or something, it wouldn't come into play on those
I don't know.
weeks.
I don't know the answer to that. Did Robin?
That's the answer.
That's what it's.
Okay.
It's a 5-day week, and that Wednesday is one of those.
Thank you.
That's why it took
I remember
so
what Robin
long
had clarified
to get it
on that.
implemented. Because there was President's Day and Snow Day.
Right.
Yeah, if there's a snow day, it nullifies it. That's just-
So if there's a snow day on a Thursday, that's the Wednesday.
That's
Then it's
true.
too late, right, that's right. Now, that's all I had.
We will not.
Any other questions though? James, thank you for bringing that up. Because I know I received a lot of questions on that.
All right, anything else for the superintendent? All right, we'll move on to board committee reports, if you have anything to report. So don't feel like obligated. Athletic committee, do you have anything new this week or?
We've been always very, well, the last, liaison meeting we had was basically on our, video not working, and that was taken care of by, Mrs. Zimmerman, and it has worked very well since that point. And, the, teacher liaison has, they basically canceled it, and they're going to have one on March.
Okay. Let's see, capital project, do you have anything else to add?
I think Carrie, updated on the progress up the hill. We did meet briefly after that and discussed long-range planning and what the amounts of the future projects might look like.
All right, finance committee, Carrie covered that pretty well as well. Do remind everyone, our first budget hearing, our first budget meeting is the first Monday at 5. Am I correct, at 5?
Next
And
Monday.
Carrie's going to give us a very broad scope of what our budget looks like. And it's basically going to roll over for this year, and then he's going to give us the, how it's going to fine tune.
And what's the date?
March 1st. March 1st, 5 o'clock.
That's for everybody.
Yes, yes.
Yes, so plan on every Monday in March, so these are all budget workshops for the board as we develop our budget. And really the purpose of those is to give you a deeper understanding, to provide input into decisions that are made when we're building the budget. So we will start, as Beth said, with kind of the broad strokes, looking at what are those fixed costs within our budget, and then our approach toward the rest of that, and as I mentioned before, taking that soft zero-based approach. It's not just as easy as a rollover from year to year, because this has been a unique set of circumstances. And this year we'll be talking also a bit about how decisions made in this year and our experience in COVID will affect us not just this year, but as we plan and strategically plan for our budget development for the next 5 years ahead. Part of that will be a lesson in history as we look at the last time we experienced something similar to this with our gap elimination adjustment, and what lessons have we learned from that can help us to inform the decisions that we make in developing budgets moving forward. And ultimately, the board is responsible for determining our tax levy. So Mr. Schultz will be talking about how we calculate tax cap and helping to walk you through that decision making as the board determines, where we want to place that levy this year. And that will be based on an examination of anticipated revenues. And then, of course, as we get closer and have more information, once the final governor's budget comes out in April, then we'll be able to really sit down and know definitively, how we're balancing that proposed expenditure budget with our revenues. And then that's how you develop and offset that with tax levy, and then that's the final proposition that you put up for the vote in May. So that's what every one of those meetings on Monday will be for. Yep. Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, if we get to, Monday and we feel that the next Monday is not needed, sometimes we'll make decisions.
Okay.
Cancel and stick to the next, if we don't have any new information to provide
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, we're flexible with that. I mean, it'll be on a Monday, but we're flexible
Awesome.
about how many. Policy, do you have anything you want to?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I do. We met on the 17th and we actually went through numbers 56 through 100. So we finished our policy manual for the year. And there really, it was nothing earth shattering that really came out of any of that review. With the exception, and again, still not earth shattering, the last policy we have, animals on school property. And the way that it's written, it really is written for the sole purpose of acknowledging a mascot, the school mascot, having a mascot allowed on school property, the bulldog. So as we were talking about it, we went a few different ways with it, and I think we're gonna have to do some work on it, but I think we need to include, anytime we've got animals that may be used for instructional purposes, and also service animals. We need to address both of those items. So that's, will be either adding a different policy maybe, or tweaking the one that we have to include those other areas. And as came up previously, we really discovered that we don't have a policy in place that talks about the ability of our superintendent to sign contracts and what the guidelines and that orders around that. So we're going to pursue, at least investigating, what a policy might look like for that, and maybe adding that in as well. So exciting times in policy.
So I can certainly track down some sample policies on both of those topics for the board to consider.
Yeah, we do, we still have meetings scheduled throughout. So, I mean, we may miss March because we've got so much with budget, and that will get some time to get some stuff together.
Yep.
And then maybe we can revisit at our regularly scheduled April meeting.
Sounds no problem. That's good, yeah. We can review that first with policy committee.
Yep.
Okay. We're moving on to policy adoption and review. I would like to adopt and revise policies 21, 25, 28, and 30. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Lucy. And a second? Second. Thank you, Kim. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. We're doing the first reading of policies number 31, 32, 36, 37, 38, 41, and 54 with no action required. We have no old business, new business. We're going to accept a donation from Carolyn and Dave Muller. Motion, please. Thank you, Kim. And a second? Second. Thank you, Lucy and Tammy.
It is magic.
Any questions or comments? All right, I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Muller for donating 2 New Woodstock Club ukuleles to the Ukulele Club. And Sue, of course, you'll be sending a thank you from the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Okay, I'm gonna do B and C together, if that's okay with everybody. Change orders is B, and C is approved unit cost methodology for the 2021 and 2022 BOCES services. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. All right, moving on to public comments. Does anyone have any public comments? Okay. All right, board comments. I will begin with Mrs. Newman.
I really don't have much to say other than the excitement within the student population and within the community to know that they had an opportunity to cheer on our sports teams again was, it was nice to see the kids had a light in their eye that they might be able to get something, and the fact that they were able to achieve that, I just feel a sense of relief, and just, they didn't end up getting this taken away, and it just feels really good. And like I said, the anticipation that I saw within just people in the community, it's like, well, I gotta get home, the game's on. We get to watch the game, and I saw people with, laptops and TVs watching both games, and it seemed to be something that, a really positive thing, and something that really seemed to kind of bring people together, and morale, and just, it was a really good thing. It seems to be, at this moment, a really good thing. So I appreciate everyone's efforts in making that happen, and the quick thinking that went behind Texas having a once-in-a-lifetime power outage. And so if nothing else, we've demonstrated how quickly we can think and adjust. And
I have a lot more Facebook friends now too. Because I was streaming it through my personal account. Can I add to that real quick? Sure. I neglected to mention in my report that the MAC League met today, just prior to this meeting, and took another vote on the issue of spectators for moving into winter sports, which will be starting in about a week and a half. And volleyball is the only high-risk sport that continues to be indoors. What's that? Fall 2, did I say winter? Thank you, we're doing winter, we're finishing winter right now, Fall 2 sports. The only indoor one is volleyball. We will continue to not have spectators because it is indoors for volleyball. I had talked with Mr. Ferrara about the possibility of adjusting that, either the main gym to facilitate the volleyball nets, because that's where we have Pixel, or using the YouTube Live again in the other gym where our current nets are, just so that we can continue to live stream that for volleyball. Any sport that is outdoors, the MAC voted to align with NISPA on 2 spectators per person, because that is outside. So we will have a system for contact tracing and for identification. We're talking about ID badges that we give to per athlete so that we can easily identify who is with us, and there will be a process for contact tracing, and it will be pretty ironclad for the outdoor sports. We will revisit the topic again prior to the start of spring sports.
Is the 2 visitors per student or per athlete, is that both visiting and home team, or is it just home team?
Great question, just home team.
Okay. So it keeps the community.
Exactly, just home team. The only exception is that if we have a home game, depending on where in the season it falls, a home football game that needs to be played on turf. Okay, so even though we're the home team, those schools that have turf are respectfully requesting that there are no visitors from either team.
That's understandable.
Which makes sense, and I certainly agree to that. So thanks for the prompt, I forgot that.
you're welcome.
Mrs. Shepherd. Mr. Light?
No, I don't have any other comments. I think we touched on anything I would have commented on in our open discussion.
No comments.
Mrs. Kelly?
I did want to congratulate Alec Hay for his 1,000 points career in basketball. And I concur with Mrs. Newman that it's uplifting to see games on a flat screen TV. I was even watching at the beginning on my cell phone. These little people, much nicer when you do YouTube and you go on a big screen. Only suggestion, and maybe it would go along with football too, put a roster with numbers on our webpage. Because, boy, do kids change in a year. And hair growing and tall, everything. So that way we can identify it more clearly as a spectator. Even the children, elementary children, were enjoying watching the games on TV.
I will look into that. I'm not sure what the privacy laws are surrounding, if we can identify on our webpage numbers with names.
Oh,
It's in the
But I think
newspaper.
we have that. I know it's in the newspaper. No, but
Never know.
things that go on our district webpage fall under a different set of laws, so.
and that was interesting, that point you made, because when I was listening to the deposit Hancock game, they would not put the music warm up.
No,
They
it's
couldn't
never afforded that.
because of the music, and they
Copyright.
weren't licensing it, and so they didn't record that. And I never even thought of that.
That would have been.
Yes. With every great advent of something new, there are more hurdles that present themselves inevitably,
And
right?
it's good to find that
That's
hurdle
okay.
before. I just want to say I'm glad our board is going to have a student member, a public
that's awesome.
session student member. I think that's a big leap for this board. We've never done, I don't think Delaware Academy has ever done anything like that before. Bruce, do you think? Yeah. So I'm proud of us for breaking a barrier. So thank you. I appreciate all of you being on board with that. So with that, I'm going to close the meeting. Our Board of Education budget workshops are scheduled for March 1st, 8th, 15th, and 29th. They will all start at 5 p.m. here in the High School Media Library Center. We do reserve the right to cancel any of those at any point because if they are unnecessary, we deem them unnecessary, or we need more information before proceeding. The next regular Board of Education meeting is Monday, March 22nd. We will begin an executive session at 5 p.m. and then return to open session at 6. The deadline for items to be placed on that agenda is the Tuesday prior to that meeting. If you have any questions, please contact our district clerk at 746-1306. Do we have any executive session?
I have nothing for a second example.
All right, so we will adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Thank you, Tammy.